And I've had a lot of conversations today with people with access to private data on both the Democratic side and the Republican side, some inside the campaigns themselves, but also some people who have access to independent data who all have rooting interests. If they're R's, they want Trump to win. If they're D's, they want Harris to win. But they're a little bit more cold-blooded and clear-eyed about the thing. And so they talk about the data not with spin or with leaning into expectations, but rather what they think is happening. And if their side is doing poorly, they're not going to deny it. They're going to talk about it and talk about how they're trying to affect how that might change. So we're going to talk about all that. And in this question of definition, and again, it's a strange confluence of events. If you look at the economic sentiment of the country, there's a few outlining pieces of data, like on consumer confidence. But the accepted view of people I talked to today, in both sides, including on the Republican side, is that consumers are feeling better about the voters are feeling better about the economy. But whether you want to call it ironic, paradoxical, or odd, that is happening concurrently with some undecideds moving to Trump, or at least towards Trump in the battleground states. And if you look at some of the data that's come out, not all of it to be sure, and we're still dealing with margin of error stuff, you can see in some of the battleground state data where the messages are targeted, right? So it doesn't always mean that the national and battleground state numbers will move together. You can see them moving towards Trump, and they're doing that in part because of not feelings about whether the economy is getting better or not, but about whether she will be a good steward of a good economy. And again, somewhat at cross pressure on her. Some of these people think she's not Bernie enough, that she's not iconoclastic enough, she's not anti the system enough. And some of the things that think she's too much Bernie. And it's that cross pressure seen by people on both sides that accounts for what some think is kind of a strange jambalaya stew of the speech she gave today. Was it establishment and centrist? Was it populist? Part of the confusion may be in writing the speech and delivering it is she's got a task to do to define herself. She needs to be the candidate of change, someone who will shake things up, right? That's not the incumbent vice president, right? That's more of an outsider. And that's why a lot of her messaging and definitions about being an outsider. But at the same time, she needs to reassure other undecided voters that she can get the job done, that she can be a good steward of a good economy in a more of an establishment way. The challenge of running against Trump is that he has the capacity to kind of play in both camps, particularly now that he's been president, and yet can seem like the outsider as well. So I'm going to talk more about my reporting, and we're going to bring some folks in who watched the speech. I will tell you, we're going to look at some clips in a moment. I will tell you that I dipped into MSNBC. They thought it was fantastic. They thought it was a great speech, clever tactics and strategy, and brilliantly delivered, and showed her knowledge and everything else. Except for the people I heard on MSNBC, I have not heard anybody else say that about the speech. Now, I always have humility about evaluating debates and speeches and set pieces because I don't know what they're saying in Green Bay diners about that speech. But I do know that at Mar-a-Lago, they thought the speech was completely underwhelming. That it was not very many new ideas. That it was kind of confusing about inflation, and that a lot of it sounded very liberal, is what they thought. I heard from a lot of Democrats, including one who's on here, who we'll hear from, who were not impressed by the speech and thought it was at best a missed opportunity.